Hello and welcome to my channel on human design. There was a lot of support for my last analysis that I did on YouTube on Jordan Peterson, and I thought I would do another one. You want to see how to look into charts, see if you like the style that I use to look into people. So I'm choosing Graham Hancock today because Graham Hancock, I like the character. I like what he's up to. I ran a Mind, Body, Spirit magazine for 20 years. And when he brought out his book, Fingerprints of the Gods, I interviewed him back then, I think 1995. So I followed some of the work that he's done. And he's basically a journalist that is, well, let's say being very provocative towards the archaeological hierarchy, in that he poses that there was an ancient civilization during the Ice Age that was devastated by some cataclysm, and yet there were people that survived that. So an advanced civilization way back in prehistory, and that some of those characters that got away then began to work with hunters and gatherers to help them to civilize their life in a more functional way. So the gifts of agriculture and building and basically bringing everything up to another level. And he's written 16 books, right? So this is someone who's very provocative in his ability to stir up trouble by going against the establishment, by saying, look, you've got all history wrong. You know, if we look at these facts and these facts, we can see that there was a much more ancient civilization that must have existed, and yet you give no credit for in the history. Basically claiming that history has been rewritten by the victors, and a whole lot of it has been excluded and forgotten. And I like Graham Hancock because I actually agree with him. I've done my own research. He makes this assertion, and the evidence that he brings out in all these different books, and including this year in 2022, the Ancient Apocalypse Netflix series, is getting a lot of support from people. So there's a lot of us now looking back and going, yeah, you know, they've messed with the history. What really did happen back then? You know, we need to rewrite the history books. So I don't know if you're particularly interested in it or not. Not all of you will be. But I am, and it's an example of an analysis. So let's have a good look at Graham Hancock. Okay, so this is Graham's chart. He's a 3-5 profile, so a martyr heretic, and he's someone who is a projector. He's emotional. He's born on the right angle cross of the 4 ways. Now, when you look at the human design wheel, you can split the wheel into 4 quarters, and I've done a YouTube video on that called, I think, Find Your Purpose. So basically, when we look at Graham in terms of his purpose, we find that he's in the 2nd quarter. Let's see if I can just show you that. So we see the 33rd gate, the gate of revelation, is the lead gate in this cross of the 4 ways. And if we look at his incarnation cross, and we can split our wheel into 4, we can see that the 33rd gate is within the 2nd quarter. So this is someone who is designed to fulfill his life through experiencing experiencing the body in different places, experiencing the form, bringing out form to add to civilization. 16 books, God knows how many videos and interviews and films that he's been making and will continue to make. So definitely he's on target in terms of what he's doing and how he's living, in that he is living according to the form, the number of places he's been to, and wanting to experience what the vibe is, and looking into the archaeology of different sites. It really rather works. So that's good. And if we go back to the main chart, we can see that, or we can just have a look and see that the 33rd gate is abstract, so it's to do with the past, it's looking back into the past. And if we look at his mind, we can see he has a channel of abstraction here. So there's this part of him that is often thinking about the past, not only his own personal past, but also, in this case, world history past, and thinking and saying, well, no, I can make sense of it this way, but not that way. I can make sense of it also with this and with this. It's a mind that continually replays in images different scenarios in order to make sense of the past. So perfect in what he's doing. Now, remember, he's not an archaeologist. He calls himself a journalist. He was actually, he did his degree in Durham as a sociologist, and his first 3 books were very much about social injustice, which is, you can see here in the 19th gate. This is the gate of need, looking towards those that are have their own emotional principles. So it's very much about the needs of the people, and he has that sensitivity to needs and resources, if we put it that way, but often socially orientated because of all this movement. We've also got, so this is looking into the past, this is looking into the resources of the past. We've got here the 44th gate, which is another way, which is really about how to deal with people, how to approach people in different ways, and handle the big egos, and know the types of people, but also think about it in terms of civilization, looking back and thinking about that civilization and what must have existed in the past. This is the fear of the past in the 44. And here in the 24, this is from the quarter of the mind. This is really about going again and again, thinking, trying to rationalize an inner truth, trying to rationalize the mysteries. A very interesting one here, which I'll go into right now. Confession, the courage to admit the mistakes of the past. In the exaltation, the practical value is starting with a clean slate, symbolized by the new moon, rational correction that opens the way to new possibilities, or irrational and irrational justification of past mistakes. So it's basically thinking about history by cleaning the slate. Like, this is what the archaeologists say happened, yet it doesn't fit with the evidence I'm finding. So let's just wipe the slate clean and start again and see what we can think of, and see if that opens up to new appreciations of what happened before, which is, again, exactly what he's been doing. So I rather like all those. Now, let's go into, what should we go into? Let's go into the nature of this. So this is his root center and the solar plex. So an adrenalized solar plex through the channel of emoting. This is someone who is naturally provocative, provocative to provoke, to find the right spirit. It's a very strong kind of crazy energy that is emotionally adrenalized and wants to move things to into another way. Feelings, very strong feelings. Now, if you look into exactly the side of this, we've got the 39.5. So the provocation, the pressure to provoke comes in single-mindedness, and he's certainly been single-minded. The rare ability not to overcome, but to bypass obstacles, the imagination to establish new patterns that make the obstacles irrelevant, the imaginative energy to provoke through bypassing obstacles. So bypassing what some of the archaeologists are saying must have happened. And he's going, well, actually, no. What if we just see that that doesn't work with the evidence? I'm going to provoke by feeling strongly and by showing you that we can't let the obstacles of some narrow-minded intellectuals who are trying to preserve their own status by holding to the status quo and having their place in the hierarchy within that. They're not really that interested, he argues. They're not really interested in the actual evidence and going from an evidence-based attitude. It's more like they've made their fame in different things that they have got to in their intellectual hierarchy. You know, the professors and the experts and all the rest of it. He's going, no, no, I'm not going to, you know, you experts, you're barking up the wrong tree. Going to bypass all you guys. And then the energy in their detriment, simple hard-headedness. Though less exalted, it can often result in success and gather support by its very determination. The energy to provoke through hard-headedness, and he's certainly got that. And he's being very outspoken about where he thinks the archaeologists are really getting in the way of the truth. And if we look at the other side of it, the 54.5 and the 55 line 6. So here we have in Jupiter, so this is again an expansive side of him, and in an emotional gate, the establishment of a framework that balances principles with energy and leads inevitably to expansion and prosperity. The possible spirit that comes when emotional awareness and energy are balanced and principled. So he's trying to get to that point where in his emotional center, where his feelings are going on, but at the same time they are based on something that is really worthwhile feeling about. Think about the mirror of this in the 28th gate, where life must have purpose and the struggle for purpose. You know, it has to be this inner alignment to your own purpose at an existential survival level here. And over on the emotional side, it's really to provoke the right spirit and have the right connection. So if it's internally felt that there's a real truth that he's onto, and he gets a feeling of what the people are like, he's got an open G after all, and what must have gone on there, he's got the imagination for that, to feel that connection with those ancestors that can no longer speak for themselves. I love that. And there's also a materialistic element to it as well, which I see no problem with in terms of selfishness, the possibility of finding the spirit through materialism, acquisition, obsession. You know, he lives in a nice place in Bath. I don't know exactly where he lives in Bath, but yes, he'll have a nice place where he lives. The 33 and the 19 are part of the cross of refinement. So there is this need for him to be in a place where he can feel in his own world, retreating away into his own civilized place where he lives, but also it's in an open throat. So what happened in the past? What are the revelations in the past? What are the revelations of the past that are out there that can be both mutative and financially beneficial to him? He's a 3-5, you know, third lines have to be self-providers. They have to make sure they've got their balance between how they want to live and also the material world, if they can get it right. And don't forget he's a heretic. Don't forget that he's a rebel. Don't forget that he's kind of hard, you know, he's got this single-mindedness. He's someone that is here to be that, or when I say play the heretic by the questions that he asks. This is a very questioning design, the head and the archon together. I used to call people with that walking question marks, you know. Why, what, why? So great thing that he's involved with, asking all the questions, got the mind for it. And we then, let's jump now, since I'm on that track. If we look at these open G, and we see that we've got both the anarchist and the general as the two leadership roles that he can play. Now remember, he isn't a consistent, he doesn't play a consistent role as a leader, but these are the ones that he's going to attune to, and the people around him who are heretics, who are leading in their own field. and the people that are anarchists agreeing with him that there's something wrong with the picture of history that has been painted. We've also got, also as part of the abstract, so we've tied the abstract with abstraction and thinking about the past to uncovering the revelations that are there in the past, wanting to draw attention to the past secrets. And here we have the prima donna, also in abstraction as part of the G, someone who can have a very challenging way of behaving, but at the same time they succeed because they're just very skilled. It's called the prima donna. I rather like that one. As part of his nodal path in the South Node, the determination to succeed that may offend others, a difficult and demanding nature, with the depth of talents, and the other one is egocentric mediocrity. And I suppose if you don't like him, you'd probably call it the second one, but basically it's not him. It's for him to really tune in to those people that are naturally involved in something that they are good at, if I put it that way. Think about all the people that he's interviewed in the latest Ancient Apocalypse Netflix movie, and in the books. You know, he finds these people that have got evidence of, you know, Nathaniel old man must have been living at these ages because we've got the teeth that fit, and they've been dated by 3 different people to show that there was humanoid life at that time, when the archaeologists say no, there aren't. I mean, these are people that are basically, a lot of them will be self-funding their research, but they're not going to give up. Think about the 46 in terms of being able to expand through life, through the experiences that you have. And then think about it as the second lines in their own world, you know, working away and waiting to be discovered. There's this element of being discovered within the 46, both at an internal and an external level, and wanting to share that. So that all fits rather nicely. If we look at the G here in the 25, the open 25, it's a kind of existentialist nature. It's the shamanistic gate. The existentialist, devotion and dedication to the now, the perfection of the intellect through concentration and focus on what is rather than what could be or has been. The innocence of the self and its protection can only be maintained in the now, or a lack of innocence in the now that risks projection through risk protection through projection. So this is basically saying dedication to what I would say dedication to the mystical moment. I could put it like that. Now, one of the books I'm more than halfway through, which is quite a challenge. It's a big book. He's got an open throat. He probably needed to have an editor that would cut it down, but I'm reading his book, The Supernatural, learning from the teachings of our ancient ancestors, where he goes into the tie-in between the ancient prehistoric rock art and the images they were painting, tied to the same kind of images and the same kind of stories that were coming up across the whole world. And he claims that it's basically very likely that instead of just being very simple paintings about hunting, that they were actually shamanistic visions. They were visions through taking in ayahuasca or peyote or some psychedelic in order to communicate with the spirits, with the non-material world. And so far, like I say, I'm over halfway through. He shows a lot of evidence and ties it into things that most people wouldn't even think of tying it into, which is another reason why I enjoy reading his books. The UFO abductee experiences, of which there have been a lot of recordings, a lot of books written on them, and how they have this similarity between the ayahuasca and the DMT trips that he himself went through. Remember, he's here to fulfill his life through civilization, through form, through experience. So experimenting himself and seeing his own visions and what he got from that and how he got to see the way he sees about the past. So definitely that's to be experimented with. We have the gate of extremes and the love of mankind in the 15, in the 5th line in Uranus. So let's just clean up a bit. So let's have a look at this one. So this is 15.5 again in the G. The power to grow, the capacity of the self to grow through experiencing extremes. And the other side, the drive of the self to overcompensate and disturb the flow. Now, again, the G, he is not the G, right? He hasn't got a fixed identity. He's walking around reflecting other people back to themselves based on the filters that he's got. However, he is here to be wise about all these things. And the 15th gate is something that I think about in terms of culture and civilizations. So, and here we've got this 5th line, which is kind of radical and heretical aspects of that civilization, growing through basically putting his body in those places, feeling the vibes, finding out the way they relate to other things, discovering hidden temples within the temple mounds. You know, so many wonderful discoveries. I mean, he's here to be a discoverer, a heretic that discovers, that brings in the financial means to fund the work, to be able to continue and to be able to live the life that is true for him. Whenever you're thinking about a projector, you're thinking about someone that is here to live a life, to really live the life. It's not about the work, it's about the life. And he's created his own way in being able to live his life, which seems to me very resonant with his design. And yes, he can get lost in trying to be someone, you know, I am Graham Hancock, you know, and this is my past, and this is why you got to believe me, you know. Yeah, well, I don't know what level of self-awareness he's got to, but we're talking about someone that is on a quest for the truth, and that means the inner truth as well. Remember, the 24 is looking to inner truth. But the idea of a quest, and he himself speaks about the quest, and I want you to think about questing in terms of the 1333, the channel of the prodigal that goes away outside the village, has all kinds of experiences, meets all kinds of people, and then comes back and informs his local tribe about all the things that he's heard and remembered about his experiences. Again, fitting very perfectly. We've got the gate 36, the gate of crisis, emotional crisis. Again, in the 5th line. So this is basically the underground, perfected survival regardless of conditions, immunity to crisis as both generator and survivor. Immunity to crisis, perfected survival regardless of conditions. And in this sense, I'm thinking about the way that he has been attacked mercilessly by the archaeologists, saying that it's a pseudoscience, he doesn't know what he's talking about, there's no evidence. And they say there's no evidence when he's filming and pointing to real evidence, you know, numbered and photographed and recorded, and here it is. Oh, we can't see that, where's that? You know, nothing to see here, they just don't see it. So he's showing it anyway. Think about the open throat, wanting to draw attention to something, you know, being loud about it. Look at this, look at this, look at this. And what is he saying to look at? Yes, look at the past. Here, the 17, his opinions, saying, well, let's look at all the different evidence, all the different facts. Yes, he's going to have opinions without looking at facts, but he's evidence-based, you see, he has to be, because it involves him going to certain places to find out certain things. Very clever, I think. Here in the 8th gate, in the 4th line, I think, in communication. So we've got a quarter that he comes from, which is about communication. We've got an open throat, which is about really attracting attention in the true self, attracting attention to what we need to look at. in the not self, of course, attracting attention to all kinds of just to oneself and to all kinds of things that are not really relevant. So this is in the 894, which is the gate of individual contribution. Respect, the gift of naturally recognizing the contributions of others, and particularly the acknowledgement of those who lead by example. He's gone back in history to some of the old Victorians and before that about certain people that said certain things that people have forgotten, and saying, hey, look what they contributed. Let's follow on from their research. Let's go and speak to the people who still remember them. I mean, I'm seeing that a lot in the book that I'm reading now. In a group where limitation is transcended, reason alone cannot predict individual worth. As an example, the acknowledged leader of an athletic team is not necessarily the most talented. A gift for contribution that is not conditioned by limitations. To be able to find those people out of the context of how they're regarded to what they've actually contributed. And remember, there's this emotional side, the urge to merge, wanting to be with people of the right spirit, to be able to go and do investigations and find those people that have been excluded and saying, well, what did you find? I'm listening to you. They may not, but I'm listening. Let's put you on camera. Let's get it out there. Let's build that spirit together. Yeah, there may be crisis. Yes, you're probably going to be slammed. Yes, there'll be consequences. But what the hell? We got to do it for the spirit. We got to do it for the truth. We got to build it up. We got to bring it out. Wonderful. Here in the 25 I mentioned about in terms of the existentialists, I'd also say, and the mystical side, also say this is a channel that can really want to be the first. Now he hasn't got the whole channel, so yes, in the not self he may get off on an ego thing about being the first to bring it out, the theory of the ancient civilization based on this. And he has leadership capacities within him to be able to do that. And I ain't kidding. I had a quick look at his Uranus. This is the left angle cross of the Alpha. So really managing to communicate in lots of different ways to people. This is like fantasy and elected leadership. It's the two of the two gates he's already got in his design come up to play in the Uranus, the end of childhood, 1990. Saw him 5 years after that. So this is really him finding his way now, him leading based on the expression of drawing attention to what is worthwhile following, talking about it. Going into Chiron, we have Contagion, which is actually what's happening when you get a Netflix movie and you're on the Joe Rogan show and you've got millions of people watching you. It's a good example of contagion. So getting on the track of what he's going to lead by, looking at the past again, and the connecting with the people that are revolutionaries, connecting with the theories that are challenged perhaps by people, standing down from the experts that can show the facts as well, by the way, finding different leaders in their fields. And now we've got, just to point it out, it's so beautiful, human design, isn't it? You find it beautiful. So the Uranus opposition leads with the 4131. And the Chiron, where he is now, also have these same gates in the 5th line, really getting it out into the world now, twice. So the Alpha becomes a road of leadership, 2-5 leadership. Again, those special geniuses, those people with select knowledge that no one's looking at, and he's finding them. And Contagion speaks for itself, really, to really get it out there into the world. So I'm not going to go deep into a psychoanalysis. Oh, we'll be here too long. I imagine I've gone on too long already. Anything else to say about Graham. Yes, we've only got the 59 here in shyness. This is the energy for intimacy, but it's in the line of shyness. So we've got shyness here. We've got the gate of retreat where he, and privacy. So, you often see him walking around, meeting with people, but probably spending a lot of his time alone. I'm sure he needs to do that, especially with this very amped up emotional energy that can just be overwhelming sometimes. But still, communicating this connection, this energy for connecting with being productive with the right people, being productive by getting involved with work to do with the sacred, with the natural. Think about the theme of the second line, with productivity and growth and making more. As I said, he's written 16 books and God knows how many films. He cannot know when enough is enough in making too much and end up exhausting himself. I have to say, he does look a bit knackered walking around some of these ancient sites in the heat. I mean, he's a projector after all, but he's got a very strategic side to him underneath this chart, which I'm not going to go into, so his body is active. He is there as a quester, on the quest to go to the different places, to find out more, to be able to do more with it. Or hopefully he's delegated it. Hope he's got a good delegation. People that are going to do the ploddy work in terms of him writing his book. I imagine he speaks it into a microphone and then it's transcribed and then it's edited. That's the way I would do it. He's got to have good editors around. But still, wanting to make more, wanting to be productive, wanting to support through the genius material that he comes up with. And finally, the spleen is open with a lot of different gates in there, both conscious and unconscious. So, yeah, this is really, it can be a fear or a fearlessness in him. If we look at the 44 in terms of the fear of the past, we also see it in the line of manipulation. I've already looked at this, but I want you to see it's in an open center. So an open center is where you can be wise or where you can get lost. Think about it as a wisdom. Think about it as where the instinctive recognition of the patterns leads to possible manipulation of others. He's looking into the past with his own evidence-based journeys and talking with different people, and he finds there's been a manipulation of the past. And this is part of where the rebellious thing comes out and goes, wait a minute, what you're saying doesn't fit what I'm finding in my own experience. A 3-5 is here to have their experience, and in this case, to lead with it. What else have we got? 48 once. Self-fulfillment, a depth and potential talent that is of value to others, undiminishable resource. The valued center that as it gives, it receives and thus can continue to give. Now, I want you to think about this aspect of the 48 in terms of where it is and what it is. So it's conscious for a start. We often think about it as the fear of inadequacy, wanting to go and get one qualification after another to prove you have the skills to back up the depth that you want to be able to talk from so people will listen to you. And what we've got is it in Neptune. So it's kind of the solutions beyond the veil, the solutions you can't quite grasp, and yet it contains lots of information. Think about his work in the book Supernatural, where he's literally gaining wisdom from speaking to people that have literally gone beyond the veil. I love that. And what's the functional aspects of it? Sometimes people in in their sessions on DMT or ayahuasca get literal teachings. The shamans get teachings from the spirits in other dimensions in order to be able to help and heal people. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. And here, the 57, penetrating into the now. Again, he's going to have to pay attention because it's an open spleen. You know, he's not going to feel particularly safe, but I'm sure he's got support, or he just doesn't care if he's on his mission. This is the ability to really tune into the way people are talking. I've done a video on the 57th gate, so you can look that one up. But I'll just say now, this is his ability to penetrate into the core of what is hidden, if I put it that way, what is not easily perceived. I'm sure he's been in different states where he's seen things that are not commonly discussed, if I put it that way. The fear of failure, or the overemphasis fear of failure in the 32. Where are you in Mars? The urge to express oneself in direct and often violent rejection of conformity, exactly. The potential of the instinct to reject adaptation and conformity in times of change. So again, we've got a lot in him that wants to tell authority to bugger off, don't we? I mean, what is that, you know, the fear of, this can be the fear of change, or it can be the fear of being held into a conformity that is restricting and doesn't allow one to move on. It doesn't allow one to really succeed in the way that one could. The benefits that can be received from understanding some of the ancient civilizations and some of the secrets that they had can help us now in this time, for sure. We have the 17th gate coming in twice. This is very important. The 17th gate is the gate of the logical mind, of course, logical opinions. We've got it in line 3. The awareness that the best road is not necessarily the most interesting. The following of the best road provides the experience necessary to meet the challenges of the road's end. The understanding that the best opinions are grounded in detail. Now, this is a conscious focus of his mind to look for the detail, to be able to establish the mutative and new opinions that he has. And the other one is taking shortcuts and skipping the details. Well, you know, maybe he does some of that as well, but basically it is being able to use this logical, so all this past orientated and individual grasping at the mysteries is coming out in the logical gate here, and also in the 4th line. So logical opinions, so someone with a reassuring way of thinking about things that can bring you to understanding. The personnel manager, the possibility of opinions based on the understanding of others. You know, how to put things in a way that will really be clear and evident in terms of their validity. And then, of course, how to express that. Expressing it in terms of the contributions of others and the bigger picture, and the awareness of the past and what's been hidden. Oh, and finally, the 18th gate here in the incompetent. So he's also the awareness to pick out those that are incompetent. The inability to correct his potential for suffering, you know, not an easy, and again, this is again part of his way of wanting to criticize the establishment in the way that they are basically keeping the truth from the people. I'm all in favor of getting the truth out, and it seems to be as well. Finally, the 43.3, an oversensitivity to condemnation that may preclude justified expediency and result in failure. Individual insight abandoned in the face of condemnation. Well, what does that tell us? That tells us that he thinks in a very unique way as well, and that you're probably not going to see in any of the public things that he shows what what he really might think. He's got to wait for the right time for the people to be ready, or the right languaging, in order to get those insights out. And he's certainly trying with that, because of the different fields that he's looked into. And sometimes he will use different phrases from people in the past in order to paint the picture for us to understand what could have happened, what was likely to have happened. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. I find Graham Hancock and what he brings out rather fascinating, and good for him as a projector, you know, to be involved in work that is a life, and to obviously enjoys it and enjoys meeting the people and meeting the right spirits and thinking about the past, bringing in the new information that he's getting on his quest, on his travels. It's nice to see that. It's nice to see someone really living a life that can really suit them. All right, that's all for now. I will see you again very soon with something new. Bye for now.